I came home a little after 2 a.m., buzzed but not drunk. The house was quiet, lights dimmed like always. Mom and Dad had probably gone to bed hours ago. I tried to be quiet, slipping my shoes off at the door, keys barely making a sound. The smell of cinnamon from Mom's new candles still lingered in the air. Everything felt normal, comfortable, familiar. I started heading to my room when I heard something. Not loud, but enough to stop me. A voice, soft, almost like a laugh. Then a low murmur. I froze on the second stair. The living room light was on. I remember thinking maybe Mom couldn't sleep, maybe she was watching one of her old movies again. But then I heard it again, another voice, not hers. Female.
Sultry.
Playful. That's when I felt my chest tighten. Curiosity pushed me. I didn't want to assume. Maybe they were watching something. Maybe I was tired and imagining things. I crept toward the sound, staying in the shadowed hallway. The voices were clearer now. My father's voice. A soft groan. Then a woman whispered his name. His full name, not Honey, not Babe, just his name. My stomach dropped. I peeked around the corner, just for a second. That's all it took. He was on the couch, shirtless. She was sitting on him, her back arched, moving slowly. They were tangled up like they were the only two people alive. Her hair fell like a curtain, shielding her face. But the way she moved, the way he held her, it wasn't meaningless. This wasn't just sex. This was something else. Intimate. Familiar. I backed away, one hand over my mouth, heart slamming against my ribs. I didn't breathe until I was back in my room with the door shut and locked. My mind was racing. I sat on the edge of my bed, trembling. I wanted to scream.
Cry.
Vomit. But instead, I just sat there in silence, staring at the floor like it could give me answers. My dad was cheating. That fact crashed down on me like a wave, cold and brutal. I kept thinking of Mom. Her smile, the way she bragged about their anniversary trips, how she still wore her wedding ring proudly. Did she know? Could she possibly know and still act so normal? I thought about the last few months. The random nights Dad came home late, claiming he had business meetings. The extra cologne. The gym membership he started suddenly. I'd thought nothing of it. He was just getting older, trying to stay healthy. That's what he said. That's what we all believed. Now those little things twisted in my mind. They weren't harmless anymore. They were signs. Clues I had ignored. I felt stupid. Naive. Angry. I wanted to confront him. Storm downstairs and scream. Ask him how he could do this to Mom.
To me.
To everything we were. But I didn't. I stayed frozen. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I was afraid of what else I'd hear. Sleep didn't come. I lay in bed, replaying the scene in my head like a broken reel. Every whisper, every movement. I hated that I had seen it. Hated that it had burned itself into my memory. Hated that my father wasn't who I thought he was. By sunrise, I had made a choice. I wasn't going to pretend it didn't happen. I needed answers. I needed the truth, not just the version he told us. And I needed to know who she was. Not just a shadow on our couch. Not just a stranger in my living room. My world cracked open that night. And deep down, I knew it was only the beginning. She arrived passed exactly before on time. Any real conversation Her message happened. had been short. Dad didn't come back that Okay, first night I'll meet or you. the second. Just tell me The when silence and left where. behind was now worse she stood in than front yelling. of me. Mom Dressed didn't like talk this much. was just another day. She moved through like the house we were catching up over coffee. She was trying to keep it Her from falling calmness apart irritated by me. sheer will. But I held it she together. Cleaned more than I usual. Introduced myself. Organized without drawers emotion. that didn't need organizing. She blinked once, rearranged twice, the
and
spice
nodded.
rack. No
When
denial.
she wasn't doing something,
No pretending
she was
didn't
staring
know
out
who
the
I
window
was.
like
she
that
was waiting
said
for
everything
something
that wouldn't arrive.
I didn't waste time.
I didn't know how
I
to
asked
comfort
how
her.
long it had been going
Nothing
on.
I said could
She
soften
didn't
the blow.
answer right away.
I was the one who told
Instead,
her,
but
she
he
stared
was
at
the
me
one who'd broken
like
her.
she was
She
deciding
didn't
what
deserve
version
it.
of the truth to
Not
offer.
the betrayal. Finally,
Not
she
the
said it
pity.
started almost
Not
a
the
year
silent
ago.
distance
A
that
business
followed.
dinner turned
For
into a
years
conversation.
she had given him
which
everything,
turned into another meeting,
support,
and then
time,
more.
love,
Her words were
patience.
clean, rehearsed.
Now she had questions
no
that had no
apology,
good answers.
no shame.
When he finally
She
showed up
claimed
again,
they'd
he
just
walked in
connected.
like someone visiting,
Asked
not
if she
like a
knew
man
he was
who lived
married
there.
when it began.
He didn't make eye
She
contact.
said yes.
He asked
She
if
didn't
Mom was
flinch.
home,
She
and when
tried
I didn't
an
justify
answer.
it, he nodded
saying
like
my
he
parents
expected
weren't
it.
happy.
He
that
looked
they were
tired,
growing apart,
like the
and
weight of it had
pretending to be
finally
something
landed.
they weren't.
He said he was staying at a hotel. To her in ways he
didn't
never
ask
could
where.
with Mom. I didn't care.
With her,
He was
I asked
alive.
him what he wanted from all this.
I didn't care.
If he was
It
leaving
wasn't
for
an
good,
excuse,
or
you
just
don't walk
waiting
into
to be
someone
forgiven.
else's life
He didn't
and
know.
decide you're entitled
He said
to
it
their
wasn't
partner.
that simple.
She said she
That
didn't
things
mean
had
to
gotten
hurt
too
anyone,
far,
to just
that it
hit
wasn't
rewind.
supposed to go this far.
Asked if he even wanted
that
to
it
fix
just
it.
happened.
He said
I
he
didn't
wasn't
respond.
sure. That
She
some
tried
part
to
of
spin
him
it
missed
as some
the way
kind of
things
faded
used to
love
be,
story,
but another
I
part
wasn't
didn't see
buying
a
it.
way back.
I asked
when
if
I
she
told him I
ever
had
thought
spoken
about
to
my
her,
mom,
the woman,
if she
he
didn't
ever
act
felt guilt
surprised.
sitting across from
He
her.
asked if she had been
smiling,
cruel.
pretending. I said
Her
no.
eyes dropped for
That
the
was
first
almost
time.
worse.
She said she
had been
did,
calm
at first,
composed,
but
over
unshaken.
time, like
It
the
faded.
damage wasn't
They were
hers
in
to
love.
carry.
And
He
love,
nodded like he knew.
she said, was messy.
Like he'd seen that side
Asked her if
before.
she planned on being
I
with
told
him
him
publicly.
he owed Mom
If
a
she
real
thought
conversation.
he'd leave my mother.
Not a
She
scripted
didn't answer.
apology.
Just
Smiled
excuses.
faintly and said,
The truth.
I don't push.
Even if it hurt.
He comes to
Even
me
if
on his
it
own.
didn't fix anything.
That said
He
everything.
agreed.
And
She
then
didn't need
he
to
left
ask.
again. He was
That
already
night,
choosing her
Mom finally
every day
opened
in
up.
silence.
She came to my room,
behind our backs,
sat on the edge of
with
the
his
bed,
lies, his
and
texts,
said,
his little
"Thank
escapes.
you."
I
Not
left.
for telling her. She
There was
clarified,
nothing more to say,
but for being
no
brave
yelling,
enough to break the
no
silence.
breakdowns. She said
Just
she'd been
disgust.
feeling it for a while.
Her calmness,
the shift,
made me feel like
the way he
I was
pulled
the
away
one
in subtle
overreacting.
ways.
Like
She told
I was
herself
the
it was
intruder
work,
in their fantasy.
stress, routine.
But I wasn't going
But
to let
deep
that
down,
story continue
she knew
uncontested.
something was off. I knew what
She
I needed
just
to
didn't
do.
want to admit it.
At home,
She asked
I
me
watched
if I
Dad
hated him
more closely
I
than
said
ever.
no. His
I was
routines were
angry,
calculated.
disappointed.
He kissed my
hurt,
mother before leaving,
but hate
sent her
wasn't the
texts
word.
in front of us.
He was still my
made
dad.
sure the performance
Even
stayed
if he wasn't the
consistent.
man I thought
But
he
once,
was.
I
That
saw
didn't
him check his
change
phone
overnight.
when he thought no one was
She
watching.
asked if I thought
A small
she should leave
smile
him.
appeared.
I didn't answer.
One he never
I
wore
told
around
her
us.
only she could
I didn't
decide
need to
that.
see the message,
But she shouldn't
I
stay
already
out of
knew
fear
who it
or
was.
habit. That evening,
She deserved
I
more
asked
than
him to
someone
sit
who
down.
gave half of
I didn't
himself to
warn
her,
him, and the
I
other
just told
half
him
to
I
someone
needed
else.
5 minutes.
The next few
When he
days were
agreed,
full of long,
I looked him in the
quiet
eye
hours.
and told him I knew.
Dad came by
I said
once
I
to
saw
talk to
him
her.
that night.
She didn't
I
let me
told
stay
him
in the
I'd
room,
read the
but
messages,
I
seen
listened
the
from down the
receipts,
hall.
even
He
spoken to
cried.
her.
His
She didn't.
expression didn't
He
change.
apologized again.
He just stared
and
at me
again.
like he was trying to
She
gauge
told
how
him
much
that
I
love
truly
wasn't
knew.
about grand
Then he
gestures.
said,
It was
"You
about
don't
showing up
understand."
every day.
He said it
Even
like
when
that would
things were
excuse
hard.
everything.
He'd stopped
Like
showing up
being
long ago.
misunderstood, justified
He asked
betrayal.
for a second chance.
I asked him
She
what
told
there was
him
to
she
understand.
needed time.
That he
Not
lied
because
to
she
she
was
was
considering it, but
to
because
me,
she
to
needed to
himself,
process everything
that he
without
smiled
being
through
pushed to
every
forgive.
holiday while
She
building
said
a
she'd
second
lived for
relationship
too
in
long
secret.
carrying the
He
weight
said
of their
things
relationship
weren't
alone.
simple. If
That
she
the
was going
marriage
to
had
carry
been dead for
anything now,
years. It would
that
be
they
for
stopped
herself.
being partners long
Later,
ago. Just
she
roommates
told me
trying
she
to raise a
hadn't
family.
decided yet.
He said my
Whether to
mother
stay,
never really
to
saw
ask
him
him
to
anymore.
move out permanently,
That she didn't ask
or to see if there
questions,
was still something
didn't care
left
about
to
his
rebuild.
life beyond the basics.
She wasn't ready to make
He
a
said
final
it like
decision.
it was her fault.
I didn't
Like
push
she
her.
should have done more.
For the first time in
I
a long
asked if
time,
she even
I
knew.
saw her do something
He
for
paused.
herself. That was
She
all
went
I
out with
needed.
friends. She didn't.
She laughed.
I
not
asked him if
forced,
he loved
but
her.
real. The woman
She
he was
started
seeing.
going for walks
He didn't
again.
answer right away.
Music in her ears.
Then he said yes.
Shoulders relaxed.
Not with hesitation.
She was healing piece
not
by
with guilt.
piece.
Just
As for me,
yes.
I stopped
I
looking
felt
at my
everything
father the
crumble
same way.
inside me.
I
Not
still
just
loved him
because of the
That
cheating,
didn't change,
but because
but
he
the
meant
pedestal
it.
was gone.
He wasn't sorry.
I saw him now
He had
as
simply
a flawed
moved on
human,
without telling anyone.
selfish, weak.
I told him
and
I was going to
capable
tell
of
Mom.
deep betrayal.
He didn't try
It
to
didn't
stop
mean
me.
I erased
He
everything
just
good
said,
he'd done.
"Do
But
what
I
you have to
stopped
do."
letting that good blind
was
me to
it.
the damage he
No
caused.
emotion. One evening,
No
he
desperation.
texted me.
Just
Just
said
resignation.
He missed talking
like
to
he had
me.
been waiting for
That
this
he
moment.
knew he'd let
And
me
now
down.
that it had come,
That he was
he
proud
didn't
of
care
the
how it
person I'd
played out.
become.
I
Even
didn't
if
tell
I
her that
hated
night.
him now.
I waited.
didn't reply
A
right
day
away.
passed.
I didn't know what to
Then,
say.
too.
I
Eventually,
watched
I
her go
told him
about
I
her
didn't
life,
hate him,
smiling
but
at him.
he had a long
making
way to
plans
go
for
if
the
he wanted
weekend,
to earn back
talking
even a
about
fraction
repainting
of the
the kitchen.
trust he lost.
She didn't know
He
her
asked
world
if I would
was
ever
about
let
to
him
explode.
explain his side fully.
I couldn't sleep.
I said maybe.
Couldn't eat.
One day,
The pressure of it
but
sat
not
in my
yet.
chest
just like a boulder.
Right now, I didn't
Every
want
moment
stories
I didn't
or
tell her felt
timelines.
like betrayal.
I wanted action.
But I also knew the
Change.
moment I did.
Accountability.
There'd be no turning
I
back.
told him to work on
I
himself
went to her while
before
she
trying
was
to
folding
fix
laundry.
anything else. I
In
sat
the
down.
quiet that followed,
I told her I saw
our
him,
house felt different.
that he was cheating,
not broken,
that
but
it wasn't a
stripped.
one-time
Raw.
mistake.
Honest.
That it was real.
There were
It was
no more
deep,
illusions.
and it had been
And
happening
weirdly,
for a long
that
time.
brought a kind of peace.
She didn't cry right
We didn't
away.
pretend anymore.
She didn't scream.
We didn't fake perfect
She just
dinners
stopped moving
or avoid
the
hard
shirt in her
questions.
hands forgotten.
Everything was out
Her
in the
face
open.
emptied.
My mom was
She
learning
asked
how to
I
be
knew.
her own person
I
again.
told her everything.
Not just a wife.
She didn't ask
not
for
just
proof.
a mother.
She
just
didn't doubt
her.
me.
And
I think
I
some
was
part of
learning
her
how to
already
live
knew.
with complicated
Or maybe
truths.
had chosen not to
that
know.
people you love
Either
can
way,
hurt you.
she didn't
that
collapse.
healing isn't linear.
She just stood up,
that forgiveness,
walked to the
if it
sink,
comes,
and
has
stared
to
out the
be
window
earned.
in silence.
Nothing was fixed.
I asked if she was okay,
but at least finally
she
it
nodded.
was real. Then she asked me to leave her alone for a bit. I did. That night, I heard them arguing. Quiet, but sharp. Low voices cutting through the walls. No shouting, just pain wrapped in every word. I didn't listen too closely. Some things weren't mine to hear, but I caught fragments. Why didn't you just tell me? I gave everything. You made me feel invisible. It lasted less than 10 minutes. Then silence. Then a door closing. I didn't know whose. The next morning, Dad wasn't at breakfast. His side of the bed was untouched. His mug was still on the drying rack. Mom made coffee, toast, then left the kitchen without a word. My family was broken. The illusion was shattered. But at least the truth had air now. And whatever came next, it would be real. 3 days passed before any real conversation happened. Dad didn't come back that first night or the second. The silence left behind was worse than yelling. Mom didn't talk much. She moved through the house like she was trying to keep it from falling apart by sheer will. She cleaned more than usual, organized drawers that didn't need organizing, rearranged the spice rack. When she wasn't doing something, she was staring out the window like she was waiting for something that wouldn't arrive. I didn't know how to comfort her. Nothing I said could soften the blow. I was the one who told her, but he was the one who'd broken her. She didn't deserve it. Not the betrayal, not the pity, not the silent distance that followed. For years she had given him everything: support, time, love, patience. Now she had questions that had no good answers. When he finally showed up again, he walked in like someone visiting, not like a man who lived there. He didn't make eye contact. He asked if Mom was home, and when I didn't answer, he nodded like he expected it. He looked tired, like the weight of it had finally landed. He said he was staying at a hotel. I didn't ask where. I didn't care. I asked him what he wanted from all this. If he was leaving for good, or just waiting to be forgiven. He didn't know. He said it wasn't that simple. That things had gotten too far to just hit rewind. Asked if he even wanted to fix it. He said he wasn't sure. That some part of him missed the way things used to be, but another part didn't see a way back. When I told him I had spoken to her, the woman, he didn't act surprised. He asked if she had been cruel. I said no. That was almost worse. She had been calm, composed, unshaken. Like the damage wasn't hers to carry. He nodded like he knew. Like he'd seen that side before. I told him he owed Mom a real conversation. Not a scripted apology. Not excuses. The truth. Even if it hurt. Even if it didn't fix anything. He agreed. And then he left again. That night, Mom finally opened up. She came to my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and said, "Thank you." Not for telling her, she clarified, but for being brave enough to break the silence. She said she'd been feeling it for a while. The shift. The way he pulled away in subtle ways. She told herself it was work, stress, routine. But deep down, she knew something was off. She just didn't want to admit it. She asked me if I hated him. I said no. I was angry, disappointed, hurt. But hate wasn't the word. He was still my dad. Even if he wasn't the man I thought he was. That didn't change overnight. She asked if I thought she should leave him. I didn't answer. I told her only she could decide that. But she shouldn't stay out of fear or habit. She deserved more than someone who gave half of himself to her and the other half to someone else. The next few days were full of long, quiet hours. Dad came by once to talk to her. She didn't let me stay in a room, but I listened from down the hall. He cried. She didn't. He apologized again and again. She told him that love wasn't about grand gestures. It was about showing up every day, even when things were hard. He'd stopped showing up long ago. He asked for a second chance. She told him she needed time. Not because she was considering it, but because she needed to process everything without being pushed to forgive. She said she'd lived for too long carrying the weight of their relationship alone. If she was going to carry anything now, it would be for herself. Later, she told me she hadn't decided yet. Whether to stay, to ask him to move out permanently, or to see if there was still something left to rebuild. She wasn't ready to make a final decision. I didn't push her. For the first time in a long time, I saw her do something for herself. She went out with friends. She laughed, not forced, but real. She started going for walks again, music in her ears, shoulders relaxed. She was healing, piece by piece. As for me, I stopped looking at my father the same way. I still loved him. That didn't change. But the pedestal was gone. I saw him now as a flawed human, selfish, weak, and capable of deep betrayal. It didn't mean I erased everything good he'd done, but I stopped letting that good blind me to the damage he caused. One evening he texted me. Just said he missed talking to me. That he knew he'd let me down. That he was proud of the person I'd become, even if I hated him now. I didn't reply right away. I didn't know what to say. Eventually, I told him I didn't hate him, but he had a long way to go if he wanted to earn back even a fraction of the trust he lost. He asked if I would ever let him explain his side fully. I said maybe. One day. But not yet. Right now, I didn't want stories or timelines. I wanted action.
Change.
Accountability. I told him to work on himself before trying to fix anything else. In the quiet that followed, our house felt different. Not broken, but stripped.
Raw.
Honest. There were no more illusions. And weirdly, that brought a kind of peace. We didn't pretend anymore. We didn't fake perfect dinners or avoid hard questions. Everything was out in the open. My mom was learning how to be her own person again. Not just a wife, not just a mother. Just her. And I was learning how to live with complicated truths. That people you love can hurt you. That healing isn't linear. That forgiveness, if it comes, has to be earned. Nothing was fixed, but at least finally it was real. A week later, Dad officially moved out. No big announcement. No drama. Just quiet packing over a few hours while Mom was at work. I was home. He didn't say much, just asked if I needed anything. I said no. Watching him fold shirts and carry boxes was surreal. He looked smaller than I remembered, like the weight of his choices had finally settled into his bones. When he left, he didn't hug me. Just said, "I hope you're okay," and walked out. After he was gone, I walked into the now half-empty bedroom. His dresser drawers stood open, bare. The closet looked off balance. There were still a few things left, an old tie, a framed photo from a vacation years ago. I didn't touch anything. I just stood there, letting the silence fill the space. Mom came home to the emptiness.
She didn't cry.
She didn't fall apart. She made dinner like usual, though she barely ate. When I asked if she was okay, she said, "I don't know yet." I believed her. She was in survival mode, trying to find her footing in a version of life she hadn't planned for. I saw her shift over the next few days. She began locking her phone at night. She updated passwords. She moved money into a separate account. Quiet steps, but strong ones. She wasn't being vengeful. She was protecting herself. Rebuilding control. I respected her for that. Dad tried calling a few times. At first, I ignored the calls. Then I picked up once. He asked how she was. I told him she was holding up. He asked if I hated him. I said I didn't, but I didn't trust him either. He said he understood. He told me he was seeing a therapist, that he was trying to figure out how things got so broken. I said good. That's where he needed to start. The woman he cheated with? I didn't hear much about her after everything. He didn't mention her again, and I didn't ask. Whether they stayed together or not wasn't my concern. That relationship was born from deception. I couldn't respect it, and I didn't care enough to track it. The hardest part wasn't the cheating itself. It was watching how something that once seemed solid could crumble so easily. Trust is fragile. Once it's broken, it doesn't rebuild the same way. Even if forgiveness comes, the cracks remain. That's what I learned. Mom started talking more. Not about Dad, but about herself. Her dreams, her regrets, her plans. Things she'd put on hold for years without realizing. She wanted to go back to work. Maybe travel. She started going out on weekends with friends. The house felt less heavy with each passing day. One night, we sat on the porch and she said, "I thought I lost everything. But maybe I just lost what I no longer needed." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The truth was in her voice. I thought a lot about what kind of person I wanted to be after all this. Whether I'd ever be able to trust people completely. I realized I could, but not blindly. People make choices every day. And love, while powerful, isn't an excuse to ignore red flags or settle for half-truths. I also realized betrayal doesn't mean the love was fake. It just means someone chose themselves at your expense. That doesn't make your feelings invalid, it just means they valued there's more in that moment. It's not fair, but it's real. Time passed. Not fast, but steadily. The house adjusted. Routines shifted. Holidays changed. There was no more pretending. And honestly, I preferred that. I'd take a hard truth over a polished lie any day. Eventually, Dad and I met for coffee. It wasn't planned. We ran into each other at a small cafe. He looked nervous when he saw me. I told him we could sit. He asked how I was. I told him I was still healing. He nodded, said he understood. He didn't try to justify anything. Just said he missed the family. I told him, "You had us. You just chose something else." He didn't argue. He asked if there was anything he could do to fix things. I told him there's no fixing, only rebuilding.
Slowly.
On my terms. If he wanted to be part of my life, he had to respect that. He agreed. He didn't mention Mom. I think he knew better. That chapter was closed. She wasn't the same woman who stood quietly by his side for years. She was starting over now. On her own terms. I didn't regret exposing the truth. It was painful, yes, but necessary. Secrets rot everything from the inside. And pretending not to see something just to keep the peace isn't real love. It's fear disguised as loyalty. Looking back, I don't think there was a single moment where everything changed. It was a buildup of small choices, missed signs, unspoken truths. That's how most betrayals happen. Not with one big lie, but with 1,000 small silences. I still think about the night I came home and saw what I wasn't supposed to see. That moment split my life into two halves, before and after. And though the after was harder, it was also more honest.
More mine.
Now, the silence in the house is different. It's not empty, it's peaceful. It's the sound of healing, of growth, of starting again. My mom laughs more. I sleep better. We talk without walking on eggshells. There's freedom in that. Dad texts sometimes. Short updates. No pressure. I reply when I feel like it. That's the balance now. I don't hate him. I just hold him accountable. He's learning what that means. I don't know what the future holds for him, or for us. But I know what it won't include: lies, secrets, or secondhand love. We've been through the fire. And we came out knowing exactly what we deserve. Not perfection. Just honesty. Just effort. Just real.